right.
Who here has not used Xamarin Forms before?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. I've got a slide in there, Sam. You're stealing my thunder, man. Seriously, I just put a slide in. Like you came in a minute after I put that slide in, and then like resumed having the full screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think.
Because I saw 27 people. I was like, yeah, there's probably some people who.
I'm not sure how to
But the
change
turnout,
the
like,
logo.
we don't have 27.
Yeah.
This is the perpetual issue. Particularly in the winter, it tends to be an issue. Like in the summer, you'll if you get 27 on, you're guaranteed to get like 15. In the
Yeah.
winter, 27 you
it
get.
changed. Okay,
11.
we're live.
But this is like
Everyone
really
can hear
That's why I was
the
curious
internet.
about
Yeah.
people being able to get in. All right, let's officially kick off. So first, welcome everybody who's viewing online. Thanks for coming, everybody. And I think almost everybody here is presenting, which is great. That's what Lightning Talks is about, right? Like I think people in the room probably, I think we've all seen each other at least a few times now, so it's good. This is like, it feels like a real community, which is great. All right, let's jump into time and location. So again, we're always here, third Tuesday of the month, 6 p.m., 45 Quinn Street West, so you all know where we are. First announcement, we have a website. Now,
Yeah.
if you want to have a laugh, once I'm through the deck, I'll actually bring up a couple of sites. It's like a time boxed it to 10 minutes, you can tell. Just a quick update. So Andrew Park is going to join us as an organizer.
Yeah.
Andrew has a really diverse set of abilities and skills, so we're really jazzed to have him on board. He's been consistently attending the meetups, like basically since the beginning. So great to have him on board. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Next month we're gonna try and get some new people joining the community. So Daniel has put up his hand and said, I want to do a getting started with Xamarin talk. So we'll do some intro stuff. I'm hoping we can kind of shop this around to people who haven't touched Xamarin, get them in here, and we can kind of help them understand what Xamarin's about, how to get started with it, understand the tooling, the process, the whole deal. So that's next month on, I think, is it the 19th or the 16th? I think I have the wrong
16th.
date in there. Yeah, so April 16th, not the 19th. So Daniel will be presenting. I'll probably be helping out to some degree. And anybody else who wants to help out with that, let me know. And including with getting the word out about, hey, we're going to do something beginner. So if you haven't touched it before, come join and learn about it.
Is this the mobile development?
Yeah.
as well.
Welcome, guys.
Pizza's at the back. Help yourself. Next up, so call for speakers, always looking for speakers. It's, again, really nice to get the community involved. So thank you, everybody who has volunteered to talk tonight and talk last month. It's great to see other people's perspective and what they're working on. I know some of the stuff kind of gets echo chambery, so it's nice to get the different perspectives. So if you want to talk about a topic or even just show off something you're working on, so like I kind of pressured Scott into talking tonight, and Scott did he told me he did some review, but didn't really do a ton of prep, so he doesn't have a ton of time invested, aside from doing the actual work, which is of course the important part.
Sorry with my learning.
Yeah, perfect, good. So yeah, you can come up here and wing it if you're comfortable with that, and just like kind of talk about what you're doing, which is great. Share your ideas. Thanks to our sponsor, BSI Labs. So BSI Labs pays for the food, the space, helps pay for some time from me to prepare for this, and Daniel and now Andrew. BSI Labs is a full-service consulting agency specializing in technical consulting, mobile strategy, cloud solutions. And really, we've kind of honed in on focusing on helping companies accelerate their mobile development projects. So if they're having trouble delivering mobile projects and mobile apps, really helping them actually get to the finish line really quick. Or sometimes they come to us and they're like, our CEO needs an app next month. And we're like, okay, we can do that. Seriously, that top-down stuff happens all the time. So I've started putting in a new section in here. So we used to just do a shout out to the general .NET group and what they're talking about, but there's a little bit more than that going on these days, so I wanted to cover all of it. So the Metro Toronto .NET user group is doing an Azure IoT Central and Event Grid talk on March 27th, so that's next Wednesday. The Metro Toronto user group used to be up in North York, and now they're run by the same group as the general .NET group. So they're in the financial district. So they're like basically just east of here. I think it's like at Bay and King. So pretty easy to get to from here. So if you're in the downtown neighborhood, it's easy to check them out. And you can find them on Meetup. Wanted to call out the .NET Community Stand-Up mostly because there's some really useful stuff in there. If you go and check them out, they broadcast the mobile specific. So the .NET Community Stand-Up happens every Thursday, and the first Thursday of the month happens to be mobile. So they do a couple different themes. I think they do tooling, mobile, cloud, and something else. So there's a bunch of different topics they rotate through, but one of the Thursdays, one of their sessions is reserved for mobile. So it's James Montemagno and usually Dave Ortno and a few other people from the Xamarin team inside Microsoft actually talking about what they've seen from their perspective, what's going on in their teams, all that kind of stuff. Next up, Global AI Night. So this is again from the Metro Toronto user group. So this is Tuesday, April 2nd. This is like kind of a global initiative to go out and do a little AI hackathon. So you can find that on Meetup as well. There's a global Azure bootcamp, so that's near the end of April. So this happened last year, I think.
What does that cost?
Pretty sure it's free. It's at the Microsoft headquarters. You can go and sign up. It's like basically a full day event on a Saturday. So if you can get out to Mississauga for 9 a.m. On a Saturday.
For free, yeah.
For free, it's a good way to.
Because AWS is like $1,500 for training.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is like, come and we'll show you how to do it. Last but not least, Xamarin Developer Summit is coming up in July. So July 11th and 12th, 2019. It's in Houston in July. So if you like heat, you'll certainly like the Xamarin Developer Summit. I've been giving the organizers some ribbing about that because I think I read the announcement and I immediately sweat through my shirt. So
Houston is very humid.
yeah, isn't that where you're from, Simon?
Dallas.
Oh, you're from Dallas.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So yeah,
Houston's worse.
you see, well, it's right in the Gulf, right?
Yeah.
So they also have an open call for speakers. So up until the end of March, if you've got a talk that you'd like to submit, they're accepting all kinds of different formats for talks. So check out their website. I didn't include a link here for whatever reason. Because I'm going to show it after my next slide. And before I get into some of those things, so quick question. Let's actually do the reverse of this. Who hasn't built an app with Xamarin? Who hasn't tried Xamarin or used Xamarin? One? Anybody else? Don't be shy. Just want to make sure we know our audience. So everybody else has played with it. Cool. Used it.
Anyone online, maybe?
Yeah. How about online? Anybody not used Xamarin before?
Daniel, let us know.
Yeah. I'll quickly bring up a few. Oh, this is nice. Check out the screen.
Ooh. Oh, shoot.
I wonder if our Elgato is actually
It's too city. Well,
just. I'll reconnect. So we've got a capture card.
yeah, it's back here.
Yeah, that relays. It does a pass through to the projector and captures
There it
for
is.
the online stream. Okay. And sometimes it's not so great. So this is the site I spent 10 minutes on. So if you go to TO Mobile Devs, you can get all our links for Twitter, Facebook, Meetup, GitHub, YouTube, and WhatsApp. I was sick of those really crappy links that we had in that slide, so I figured just put them all under one roof.
We're definitely mobile developers.
That's what Daniel said when he saw it too. Yeah, quick and dirty. So the Xamarin Developer Summit. So it's sessionized Xamarin Developer Summit. I think they have a main URL now too. Xamarin Developer Summit. Yeah, they stood up a domain last week. So if you're interested in Xamarin, if you want to go and they're trying to replace what Evolve was, Xamarin Evolve, the conference that Xamarin used to hold before they were purchased by Microsoft. So something interesting to check out. I'm going to try and make it down there, and I hope you can too. One last thing before I hand things off to Samer. So I know we've talked about this library that Daniel and I built called HTTP Tracer. I am actively soliciting feedback for a spec that I published a couple days ago. So if you get a chance, take a look at HTTP Tracer on GitHub, and the spec is an open issue in the issues queue, and I'd love your feedback. I'll be demoing some of that stuff in my slot, my Lightning Talk slot later on. So without further ado, let's hand it over to Sam.
We have a mixed audience of native developers, Xamarin developers, and people that are new to Xamarin. I have no experience at all in the live stream.
Good to know.
Oh, yeah, we need to use
Use this one.
yeah, right there.
We're so jumping. We had to fight for this last time. I hope it's not a fight this time. It's not. It's good.
Alright, so I just checked the Azure Bootcamp in Mississauga, and I'm on the wait list. So it's 415 people signed up already for April 27th. Anyway, so today I will be speaking about a few things. So I'm Samer Mansour. I work as a mobile developer at a company called BGRS, Brookfield Group Relocation Services. It's a Canadian Armed Forces project. So we're helping relocate people. It was a project that was handed over for some Russians to do. They gave up and they just handed it back. And they were like, hey, we're looking for someone with, to handle this project with no documentation. So that's basically what I do. But apart from that, my free time, I code for fun. And the way I got into mobile in the first place was through IoT. I really wanted to control these little electronics. And so what I thought would be really cool is, share some of that, what I learned. Because a lot of what I learned is sort of intersectional. When you go to computer science school, you study about computers and code and all that. But when you go to electrical engineering school, it's like more electronics stuff. So this is like intersectional. So not many people kind of dive into it, but it's great for like if you have an invention. If you have like a really cool idea that you're like, oh, I want to kickstart it, and so what I thought I would share is something that would get you started with that journey to Kickstarter. That could have been like a better title. but what I thought is, since I've been doing this for like 3 years now, so I was like, I always had this idea of creating a device because at companies that I worked at, they served kombucha on a different floor. Every time we went to that floor, the kombucha was always over. So we would go like 5 of us, we'll go to this other different floor, waste like 10 minutes, and there was no kombucha every single time, and it was such a pain. You know, it's kind of like getting rejected. Who here's got rejected before? You know? Yeah, like by a girl maybe. You know, maybe people don't try or something. but you know, it's kind of like that feeling where, hey, wait, where.
Where you lose connection to your.
Okay, yeah, where like, you know, you're rejected, you're like super happy, and then you go there and it's like not there. So that's basically the inspiration, you know? It's like, hey, we want to do something that's fun and that's good, but we don't want to be rejected, so that's why we thought, and kombucha is something like, some of you might, who know about kombucha, it's like healthy tea, it's like soda, but it's, or beer, but it's like healthy for you. So it's like, you know, why not? Why shouldn't we have that kombucha? It's not like it's bad for you. And so there are two parts of it. One is like the device, and the other part is like, you know, actually staying up to date with the status of your kombucha. So for people who haven't done much Xamarin Forms or Xamarin, I was like, hey, you know, let me just go through really quick so you guys are able to understand what's going on. Really quick. What are some priorities when people build mobile apps? Executives want a 5-star app. They're like, yeah, it has to be the best app out there. Developers had to make sure that it's device agnostic. We had to make sure that it integrates well with all the different API versions and OSs. And we want something that's easy to maintain, easy to carry on. So there's this huge debate about hybrid versus cross-platform versus native. And like, you know, native people are like, yeah, we're the best. Hybrid are like, we're the best. PWA, we're the best. Everyone's like, yeah, we're on it. So in the debate of, you know, if you leave native behind because you got to know different languages for iOS and Android, you got to know, you know, Kotlin or Java and Swift or Objective-C. So if you know, leave that behind, you're like, okay, I want to make this easier for developers, people that I get. You know, you're left with either hybrid or cross-platform. So if you do a research into it, you realize that there's no real clear line on what is hybrid and what's cross-platform. It's very like a grayish area. People like to call the other one like cross-platform. They're like, yeah, you know, that's hybrid. You know, if you want to talk down upon. Sorry. Oh yeah, React Native is hybrid. You know, but yeah, React Native is cool. But you know, so one definition is like, oh yeah, if it uses more than one language to be coded in, it's hybrid. Like Cordova or PhoneGap used HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so that's hybrid. And then, you know, like in iOS itself, like native development, you can use Swift and Objective-C. So wait, is that hybrid development? You know, so it's clearly native, but yeah. So the one that I landed on is like, oh, if you're able to access all the native APIs, it's pretty close to cross-platform. So cross-platform is very close to native development, and you know, the performance has to be really good, and that's one place where Xamarin isn't really as performant as native. So it's like, oh well, you know, maybe it's not.
Depends.
It depends. Yeah, exactly. It depends. You know, it's not like always true. So going back, what's Xamarin's mission? You know, what was the purpose of Xamarin? To make it easy, fun, simple to create mobile apps. You know, great mobile apps. And there's a lot of great mobile apps out there that you just don't know, but they're like top of the charts. Mm-hmm. You know, like one of the apps that I worked on, and I told a bunch of you, was number 5 on the iOS utility store. So it's an app that you pay your bills on. People hate paying their bills. It's like right below Google Chrome. So people love Google Chrome and they hate paying their bills, but it was still number 5. So Xamarin has a really, really good shot of like, you know, being able to make really good apps. Yeah.
So the Microsoft is putting up a website with all of the success cases of apps that were built using Xamarin. So there's big apps like UPS, I think it's the name of the company. So there's a whole bunch of like big
Yeah.
companies that build their applications using Xamarin.
How do they find out unless like people tell them?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you have to submit
Yes.
your success case
Exactly,
to be
yeah.
displayed on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not many people do it. Exactly.
Mhm.
You know, it's like people think that Xamarin isn't as popular. You know, they're like, oh, is Xamarin good? But like in reality, there's so many apps out there that they just don't tell them. Like, I don't know if you've been getting phone calls about Delta Airlines. Anyone trying to get recruited by Delta? Oh, there we go. The Delta Airlines has like 20 positions or something for Xamarin developers, and everyone in North America is getting phone calls. So really quick, Xamarin has two parts, Xamarin Native and Xamarin Forms. One of the biggest advantages of Xamarin is that you can share backend logic. It's basically business logic. Is his account past due or not? You know, things like that, where it's not really dependent on the UI. It's like a view model layer, so you can just share it with a common backend. But with Xamarin Forms, you're also able to share UI logic. So you basically almost like 96%, 97%, you just code it once, and it shares across. So you don't really have to do much code. And so I like to call it the instant app maker because it's so easy and so quick to make really beautiful apps. And people are like, what? You're already done? I thought it would take you a month to do. Anyway, and then advantages are it's always up to date. Always they always catch up to the latest OS. So how to get started? It's really simple. Just download from the internet. It's for free. You don't have to pay anything like you used to. You pay $1,000 a year before to get a license. Make sure you install everything. You're almost there, and that's it. You have it installed. Now, how do you get started? Just click on the button, click on the icon on your computer. Hit New Project. Choose a template for the blank Forms app. Write your name and hit Create, and then change it to iOS and hit play, and that's it. In 6 clicks you have your first iOS app ever. So there's nothing stopping you from doing it today, guys. Nothing except yourselves. Do it. Just install it and press these 6 buttons and start. Okay, so now you guys have started, you guys have built your first app. There's a really good resource on how to move forward called the Xamarin Forms Control Reference. I don't know if is it still called the Xamarin Forms Control Reference?
Maybe.
You just Google it and you'll come to this. So this is something that it's a good way of learning the basics is pages, layouts, views. Pages, layouts, views, PLV, pages, layouts, views. So there's a hierarchy in how your app page. So the top level of the hierarchy is the page, and stuff inside it is part of layouts, and then the views are basically like the button or the field, text, and so you can have multiple views inside a single layout. You can have multiple layouts inside a single page. As you can see over here, there's a tab page. There's a content page. Inside the content page, there's a stack layout. Inside the layout, there are entries and buttons, which are views. So pages, layouts, and views. And then there's different kinds of pages depending on what you want. Navigation page, tab page, layouts, different kinds of layouts, stack layout, absolute layout, carousel, scroll view, stuff like that. You can go through it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and make a really simple application for you guys, just so you guys know, how to get started with this. So over here, and I'll do this in the demo, but over here you can notice that we have a page. Inside the page we have a layout, which is the stack layout, and inside the layout we have views. So we have a label, we have an entry, which is basically a text field that you enter stuff in. We have a button, and then we change some of the properties, the color, the text, and then we have a button function. So I'm going to create a new. So I'm just going to follow the steps that I showed in that slide where, getting started. So I'm just going to call it, what do I call it? Daniel is awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Alright, so the Daniel is awesome app. There's, close. So I'm closing my existing app. And over here, you quickly notice if you change it to iOS, you change it to debug, you click on iPhone 5S, you hit play, it'll actually build it on the app. And it takes a few seconds because it's the first time and it's still loading. But the app page is the first page, it's the entry page. And right now it's pointed to the main page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new page. So just add new file, a content page. I'm going to make it C# just because it's easier to do, because you don't have to deal with binding, two-way binding or binding in general. Here, so I just hit play, I didn't make any changes, and we already have the app. So now, creating the new page. What we're going to create today is like a crush finder. So it basically tells you, it tells you your future. So you put in the girl's name, and you try to find out if she likes you or not. And depending on whether she likes you or not, you actually message her. Others you don't. So I'm going to call it the crush finder page. Crush finder page, and I'm going to change this to point to the crush finder page instead of that other page. And I'm going to bring in the code that I have in my repository that's also in the slide that I shared with you guys. Ooh. So anyone trying to get to my repository, just go to github.com/SamirM. It's pinned. It's just called Where's My Kombucha. You guys can find it right there. I'm just going to copy this code. And here, crush finder page. And I'm going to hit play. So we already went over the code. This is the constructor, and inside it there's all these views. We add those views into the layout, and then we set the content property of the page to be that layout.
Samir, can you enlarge the font?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, oh, there we go. So this is the page. Inside the page we have the constructor. Inside the constructor we have different views. We add those views to this layout over here, and then we add that layout to the content property of the page, and then we hit play. So over here we have our app. So you guys saw what I did. So let's see. I still have a crush on Angelina Jolie. Let's see if she's good enough for me. Angelina Jolie. Find out if she likes you. So I tap on it. Say, nah, she ain't into you. It's rejection. You can stop already. Clicking isn't going to help you. Alright, fine. So that's basically what we have for that. Some other resources for Xamarin Forms is the Xamarin University. It used to be there. I think they moved over, or they are moving over.
So it's still there.
Okay, still there.
End of April.
Okay, and then we have like some university professors too in our community from the Xamarin University. And there's the Xamarin Docs, and there's the Visual Studio App Center. So now that you guys kind of have an idea of how to build apps, we're going to move to the next part. Hopefully this is more exciting for all of you. So, how many of you know the difference between microcontrollers and microprocessors? No one? Okay, so a microprocessor is basically inside your computers, your CPUs, they have microprocessors. The microprocessor is also a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pis, as you guys know, are like, oh, the cool new thing. And so these are microprocessors. They hook up to HDMI cables or whatever, a display. Inside the microprocessor are multiple microcontrollers. And so the smallest unit of, not the smallest unit, but like one of the smaller units of a microprocessor is a microcontroller. And so when you create products, when you look for IoT products, they usually are microcontrollers. They're not really microprocessors. And then they certify, they go through all that process. So we're developing a microcontroller today, not a microprocessor. We're not doing Raspberry Pi stuff. Because I feel like that's cheating. It's like you're just coding a computer.
It's like Arduino versus Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, Arduino is a microcontroller, exactly, and Raspberry Pi is a microprocessor. Do you guys know the difference between direct current and alternating current, like AC and DC? No? How many people know it? Okay, so AC can kill you, DC cannot kill you, isn't that? No, DC can kill you, AC can't, or something like that.
They can both kill you.
Yeah, because isn't that what like Tesla tried to sell AC current, but then like I think it was Edison, he hooked up like
Usually direct current.
He hooked up AC to an elephant and he electrocuted an elephant. And then they were like, oh yeah, we don't want to use AC, we want to use DC. So DC is less dangerous. In DC current, the ground is the black wire, is the negative. And that's different from generally normal standards. So the ground is the black wire, is the negative. The ground is the negative. Okay? And so there's a lot of different kinds of microcontrollers. There's the ESP32, which is considered like the new thing. It's just $4. And then there's the particle photon, which I have over here. And then there's your normal Arduino. So the difference is generally is that the ESP32 has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on the board. And the particle photon, and it's $4. The photon is like $20, $25, and it has only Wi-Fi, but you have access to the particle cloud, which is very, very valuable. Because like building a cloud around your microcontroller is a lot to get into, especially if you're just starting. And then also the LED bulbs have two legs or two leads. One of them is longer, the other one is shorter. So if you're trying it at home and you look at this and you're like, oh, why isn't it going on? It's probably because you flipped it over. So the shorter end is negative, and so that one connects to the ground. So it won't really work. And also with the particle photon, you can just code it through the browser. So that's pretty awesome. And then you have access to the particle function, variable, and events. Generally, if I'm running out of time, let me know, right? Okay, so generally you hook up your device to your computer, but with the particle photon, you don't need to hook it up. You can just like connect it to a power bank. And then the particle function is basically like a function that you can call from outside the device. You can use your phone, you can use your browser to call that function that's on your device. So it's pretty cool. And then variable is just like a variable that you can view from outside. So this is the browser where you actually put the code. You see over there on the top, there's a flash sign over here, right there. Oh. Flash basically means you're putting the code onto the device. How many of you have like done work with microcontrollers? Not many people? Really exciting stuff. It's really fun stuff. I would highly suggest, especially the particle photon. It comes with a kit that's like $50, and you can do like amazing things. If you just search particle photon community, there's so many projects that you can do. And so when I'm like showing you guys this stuff, just like think of your own ideas, like your own projects that you wanted to do, and you can actually do it. So once you buy it, you get access to this buildoutparticle.io. You can put your code there. Most of the C++ embedded code has two functions. There's the setup function and the loop function. The setup, basically, as soon as you turn it on, it goes through that setup function, and then the loop function, it just goes on all the time, like throughout its life that the device is on, it just goes through that loop function. So it'll just be void setup and then void loop. And over here you see we just set up these pins. Basically, there's different pins on the device, and here there's different pins on the device, and so we're assigning values to these pins in that function. And I have the C++ code also on the GitHub repository if you guys ever want to go through it. So I'm not going to dig too deep because I know it might get a little boring, but I'm going to just teach you some of the basics. So the thing that you guys are seeing the whole setup on is called a breadboard. Like this is a breadboard. A resistor, do you guys know what resistors are used for? So basically bulbs are pretty small, and so if you put in like high voltage, even 5 volts through them, they will blow up. So you got to put a resistor to reduce that voltage, essentially, to drop the potential. And so this over here is a resistor. That's the light. These are just cables. You see over there is the ground. Wait, it says, is that 3 volt? Oh yeah, here's the ground. So what did we say ground was?
Lag.
Yeah, good job. All right, cool. So he hooked up the ground to the negative over here, and then since it's a breadboard, these are vertical lines and these are horizontal lines. So that negative goes all the way up, goes through this resistor, and then this is a horizontal line, so it goes through this LED bulb, goes the other way, goes this way back through the horizontal line, and then he hooks that all the way down to D6. Okay, so our device is a little different. Our device is we use D0 and D7. So this is D7, and we use D0. Okay. So the other advantage of using the particle cloud is that you can actually make changes. Like you can actually switch. Just make changes. So if you hook up like a fan to it, you can say turn the fan on from like either a browser or a phone. So particle really is awesome in that way. Over here I have two resistors because there's one resistor going through one LED, which is red, and we have another resistor going through the other LED, which is blue. So basically what we're going to do is, if kombucha is available, it's blue. If kombucha is not available, it's red. So someone basically puts it on their phone saying, oh yeah, kombucha is gone, and everyone finds out. Particle variable, basically, like I said, it's a variable that you have access to. So you can change from outside the app, and you have access to it, globally. And so you're able to use it in a mobile app. For example, over here, if that responds, so that's the URL. So if you just call that URL from your browser, your phone, you get this response, this JSON response. You check for the result, and if the result is 0, you turn the background red. Oh, wait, what? Where did that go? Oh.
Comes back on.
Is everyone following so far?
Yep.
Everyone following? Is it pretty boring?
Went dark over here too. Try to unplug and plug it again.
I thought it was one of you guys. Like, yeah, this is so boring. Let's just stop this. Stream.
Oh, the fun with this Elgato. No? Yes? Okay. No good? Remember the same thing happened with Mark last week,
Yeah.
or last month.
So here, can you store an HTML page inside of this?
You should be able to.
Really?
Should be able to. In
Oh,
these
yeah.
ESP32s, that's what you do in order to do the whole setup for Wi-Fi. Like once you actually create your device.
Oh,
Oh, hey, there we go.
Back in
is that not here?
Once you actually create your device and you want to, do the setup at someone's house, he basically and you connect to the Wi-Fi, you connect to that HTML, and then you put in the SSID and password, and that's how like that device connects to the local internet. Yeah.
I worked with one of these before, but I was doing the local network. It's an old one, like 10 years ago.
A local network.
Yeah, the LAN.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. no, these have come so far. Like these have come so far.
This would be-
From
Yeah.
what they used to be.
Bear with us for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, there we go.
Good.
Angelina
Oh,
Jolie.
yeah.
Get down on my face. All right. That was Angelina Jolie. Sure. All right, cool. So,
Should come up.
so JSON file, and depending on the result.
Bear with me. Okay, here we go. It's back here.
Okay, we're back.
All right. Based on the result, if it's 0, that means it's off. If it's 1, that's the way I set it up in the code. If it's 1, that means it's, there is kombucha. If it's 0, if it's negative, if it's any other number, that means there's just no connection. So yeah, just stay with me. People who are crazy about kombucha, it's like, almost there, guys. Almost there. If this, then that. How many of you have used if this, then that? Okay, cool. A few more people. So with this, with particle, and what you can do with the others, and it's very difficult to set up with the others, you can actually hook it up directly to if this and that. So if your variable is 0, if it's off, you can just go to if this and that and say, if this, which is the particle, wait, really quick explanation about if this and that. It basically allows you to check for a certain condition, and then it does a certain action after that. So if it's going to rain in your locality, it can tell you by sending a text message to you or calling you and saying, hey, it's all free. Really, really cool service. So you can use particle, you can monitor the variable, and you choose that as a trigger. So if there is kombucha, it calls you and it's like, hey, dude, kombucha's on, and then you go. So that's really, really cool. Let me demo this part to you. There's quite a few things over there. So first of all, I'm going to show you the, so I have the particle, I don't know, is this visible, everyone? So I have the particle set up just like I showed in the picture, and right now there's no kombucha, so the light is red over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the website, and I basically just got the code from their code examples. So you go to the website, and let me increase the size. So this is all the code that was needed. It's just the URL. You put in the access token. Wait, where's my access token? See, go there. Oh snap! No, that's not the access token. Okay, put the access token in, and these are like 4 lines of code, and you say, hey, what's the status of the kombucha? The kombucha has arrived. So I just hit dispatch message, and the light turned. Let me show it again. Reload. So okay, access token again. I just haven't saved my access token so people don't do crazy stuff while I'm down. And then so I say, hey, the burger's finished all the kombucha. So I dispatch message, and you guys should watch here. It's blue right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So I mean, this is like web code. I didn't really do anything over there. But since we're mobile developers, or aspiring mobile developers, we're going to create a new file. That was awesome. Add a new file. We're going to call it, let's see, what do we call it? We call it, not the question page. Kombucha page. Kombucha page. I don't own a kombucha company. Alright. I gotta add the Newtonsoft package. So NuGet packages are basically libraries that you can add on. So it's like a ton of code that you don't have to rewrite. You can just use. So I'm adding a JSON package, which is very popular, called Newtonsoft. I'm going to, come on. Okay, so I'm going to add my access token in. Ooh. Copy.
Is that token a production token? No, right?
It is a production token.
It is.
But I mean, it's my own account.
You
Okay.
might want to just undo,
You might want to control that a little bit.
those, yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Very cool. There we go. Okay, cool. So over here, what you'll notice, again, pages, layouts, views, isn't it? So inside the kombucha page, we have to set the app to show the kombucha page instead now. So we go to the app, .xaml.cs, replace it with kombucha page. Inside our kombucha page, we have the page, and there's a constructor. There's views around here. We have a view outside the constructor because we want to be able to access it everywhere. We have commands. We're using other views called buttons. And then we have a layout. The layout contains the buttons and the result label. And these are the particle functions that I talked to you about. So essentially, let me show you guys the code of this particle device. So on the C++ side, as you guys will see, it's super, super small as well. Like, guys, you don't have to be smart in order to do this. I am not smart, and I can do this. So you can definitely do it. Remember what we talked about, there's a setup function, and then there's a loop function. Those are the two main functions. Setup, the loop is empty right now, because it doesn't do anything on loop. And there's a setup function. So we set up the pins over here, and then we have the particle function, and then we have the particle variable. The variable basically just stores the current status of the device, and the function is basically the function that you can call from any other device to change the status of the device. So we have the LED toggle function that we created. So if you send a request, an API request, or just that HTML thing with LED, just put the value in as on or off, it will change the value like this. It just writes it. If it's high, that means it's on. If it's low, that means it's off. So what we're doing is that we're saying whenever you send an on command, whenever you're saying that the kombucha is available, we're just turning on one light, turning off the other. It looks really cool with all these lights, but at the end of the day, it's not really rocket science. And then we have the variable digital value. We're just declaring it outside, and we're just setting it over here. Okay, so now you know what's there on this C++ side. Since we made a mobile app and we want to make it a little cooler, we have these like LED on function and LED off function, and then we have the result label update. So it'll update the result label to kombucha is here, and it'll change the color to blue, and it'll change the background color to sky blue if there is kombucha available. And if it's not available, then it'll say, you know, kombucha's gone. It'll change the background color, it'll change the text color. And this is the get kombucha status function. Like I said, it's just a URL. That's it. Like that's all that's there for the check status. This is where we deserialize the response. The JSON object that we get, we actually like help the app understand. And since I did not abstract my class, I just put my models over here. This is the model that was formed. Okay, so let's try this out. So you guys saw the CodePen stuff. Do you guys know what CodePen is? It's basically like a page that you can deploy, like a website that you can deploy rapidly. It shows rapid changes. And you guys saw the C++ code, and now you guys are seeing, you guys saw the C# code for the mobile apps. Now here's the app. So the color was red, so it's, you know, the kombucha is gone, so the LED is red over here, and so over here also it recognizes that the LED is red because we have the particle variable. So if the kombucha is refilled, you just click the full button and bam. Yeah.
Cool.
So bam, kombucha's gone, bam, kombucha's here.
Nice.
Super responsive. And I mean, guys, this is like really simple stuff, and you guys can all be inventors and all have Kickstarter pages, and I will support you guys. I'm serious. Yeah. So in a world of soda, in a world of soda, be kombucha. Be the good person. Be the good guy. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I have, to access the board, did you use any specific library or?
No, that's what I mentioned in the beginning, that this is one of the few boards that you can actually just do all online.
Mm-hmm.
So you just go to build.particle.io
Mm-hmm.
and you know just upload the code.
Just
here.
hit the API
Yeah,
then, right?
it just needs your device ID.
It just
Your API key.
yeah, no, you just log in. It's even easier.
It already knows that stuff.
It already knows that stuff.
So you register the board to your account?
Yeah, you just register your board to the account. It's very simple to do, and it makes it very easy.
Mhm.
Like there's no reason not to start doing it.
Yeah, I've never used a particle before.
Yeah.
I've used all kinds of other stuff, and it's the legwork you have to put into wiring it all up to make sure it can
Exactly.
get through the internet. You have to use all kinds of.
Yeah.
You basically need a message hub, right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
I've used PubNub before to do
Yeah.
messaging back and
Yeah.
forth, and it's a pain.
It is a pain, and I mean they even have like a console over here to check your status. You know but this is basically what I was talking about. Like you just put your code in over here, and they have all these. They give you all these examples
Mhm.
as well. So blink an LED. You know, they give you so much code to. Yeah.
Nice.
You just click the flash button, and bam, it's on.
Mhm.
You know, you don't even have to be connected by wire. I just did it for power
That's cool.
because my battery pack was dead. But yeah,
Awesome.
thank you for that.
Thanks for here.
Very big sound.
Okay.
Next up is Marcelo. That's great.
4 o'clock. They have a lot. Like this is
Let's just go
like
seamless this time.
like 37 sensors. This is called
Good.
Man, I don't even remember what it's called.
First try.
Thermoelectric
Good.
cooler.
Marcelo, we have quite an audience here in the live stream.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, yeah.
your mother is cheering for
GPS.
you.
Yeah, family is big and a lot of good friends there. How are you guys?
For this? Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone. My name is Marcelo. I work for Redbit. If you guys had been here last month, my boss Mark talked about offline data handling. So I'm here today to talk about geofences, of course, in the mobile development, your mobile dev group, and also work around for a platform limitation. I want to share with you guys wall we at Redbit faced and how we climbed that wall. So, talking about me, I'm a computer engineer and have 20 years of that experience here. I first worked with Delphi 3. Is there any dinosaur here who touched that thing? No? Yeah. Yeah, and I'm working with .NET since 2003. And for mobile, I worked first with Windows CE back in the day, and also Android native, and now Xamarin. I'm a Xamarin certified developer. It's not counting anymore
Yeah, it's-
since Microsoft is
it's
shutting down the
Cincinnati, right?
university. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the good part is everything is going to be free in Microsoft Learning.
Yeah.
Free is good, right? Okay, so talking about geofence. Geofence is a virtual perimeter for a real-world geographic area. So as you can see in the picture, I have a pin location here with a latitude and a longitude. It's a geographic location, and I also have a radius that's defined my geofence.
Yeah.
So it's good when you are developing something, I don't know, maybe to find where your kids are. I don't know. It's something.
Yeah.
Something. It had a lot of discussion on that. Okay. And in mobile development, both iOS and Android, we can monitor a certain amount of geofences. Each geofence can trigger 3 events: when you enter them, when you exit, and you will stay there for a certain amount of time. The platform will handle this for you. It's not your app. Your app will tell them, hey, take care of these geofences for me, please, for iOS or Android. And if somebody entered there or exit or triggered the other event, we'll communicate to your app. So I will show you in a more graphical way. So in this example here, in our app in Redbit, we had an application in web that creates some geofences. So in the picture here, you can see 4 of them. Each one has an ID, a location, and a radius. Let's assume it's very different locations. And my app gather all the geofences from the API, but this is only my example. You can do this on your mobile app itself. Doesn't need an API. And also, I'm using a Xamarin icon here, but it doesn't matter. It can be your native app like Swift or Java, Kotlin, or React Native. It's up to you. So my app grab this information from the API, and I register into my platform. Okay, so this is how the monitoring geofences work. This is an animation. I enter the geofence, and then the system trigger that and notify my app, and then my app do the thing I want to do, show a message or whatever. Okay, so this is how the mobile handle a geofence, monitor the geofence. But the problem is there a limitation? In Android, you can register 100 geofences. In iOS, just 20. So for each app, for example, let's talk about the iOS. Your app can register maximum 20 geofences, and Google Maps will register another 20, and Foursquare another 20, and there it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And for Android, it's a little bit better. You can do 100, but maybe depending on what your app is doing, it's not enough. So this is the wall we faced, and how we handle that.
So why was that a problem for you guys?
Okay, for our next slide, it will be easy to understand.
Okay.
So let's take an example for iOS, which is the smallest amount we can handle. In this picture here, you can see there's about 23 or 24 geofences, but I want to monitor them all. You know, like maybe my user, it's walking close to these ones, but since I only can register 20 geofences, how the iOS will monitor all of them?
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we did, we generate a master geofence, right?
Yeah.
Covering only the nearest 19 geofences,
Mm-hmm.
because our limit is 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we create a master geofence with an ID and a location and a radius big enough to cover the nearest 19. And here we have the 19 geofences,
Mm-hmm.
and the last one, it's our master.
Mm-hmm.
So I create a different ID, so no geofence can get that, but it's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And here, I want to show you how this is going to work, since I'm monitoring the 3 events: when I enter, when I exit, and when I stay there for a amount of time. But our app only handles the entered event and the exit event. So here I am right in the middle of the master geofence,
Mm-hmm.
and if I get out, I just create a new one and grab the next closest nearest 19
Mhm.
geofences. So this is how we can work that, right?
So you'll be in a certain region of the city, and then for that region you have smaller geofences in it, right?
Yeah.
And when you receive the event that your user has left the master geofence, then you create a new one and remove all of the other geofences smaller, and then look for those other geofences in the new master geofence.
Yes.
right?
So the first time you use the app,
Mhm.
the application grab your location, your latitude and longitude, and in our case, we have a API server to do that.
Mhm.
So we call the API and say, hey, here's my location. Give me the nearest 19 geofences.
Mhm.
And the server said, here you are. And then my app just give to the platform OS, say, please handle this to me.
Mhm.
And I will, of course, I will monitor all my smallest geofences. It's where my app needs to act.
Mhm.
But I will also monitoring this master geofence. And since I get out of this master,
Mhm.
since I receive this ID and the event is out, my app will know, oh, this guy just get off the master. I need to get to check with my server again.
Mhm.
So the app will talk to the server, hey, give me again, this is my new location, give me more geofences, and then I will override my older list.
If at
Yes.
the point where you're coming out of your master geofence, you don't have the data connection.
Pardon me?
So if at that point where you're leaving your master geofence, if you don't have the data connection, you won't be able to.
Yes, in my example, since I'm using an API server,
Okay.
if you get out and you don't have an internet connection, it will not update. It will keep monitoring the old ones until you get a connection.
Got it.
But that depends on what your app is doing. Maybe your app doesn't need an API.
You could keep them in the device and just.
Yeah, list of geofences in an SQLite or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So
Marcel?
this is how the platform does. It's you don't have to do nothing in your code to detect if your app, if your user is on or out. The system will do this for you.
Marcelo, there's a question here at the stream. They're asking if the geofences can have any shape or just a circle shape.
No, yeah, that depends. It can have any shape,
Okay.
but I mean the way we used in Redbit,
Mm-hmm.
the circle shape would be better for us. But that depends on the purpose of your application.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, because so if I remember right, because there's the iOS and Android APIs. I think you have longitude, latitude, and radius.
Yes.
So like it would be difficult to create a square geofence.
Yeah, it's more complex, but you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it, but some stores do it. Like when you walk in, like into a specific store in a mall, some will have geofences specifically for the boundaries of their.
Yes, like you have your format of your store. Sometimes it's not a perfect square or a perfect circle.
Yeah.
You can like draw your geofence and check and monitor it there. Once again, it depends on the purpose of your application, but you can do that.
It's easier to just ballpark it with a radius, so
Did you guys think about using beacons at all, or no? That was not really a solution. 'Cause I know
No.
beacons have like 200 meter. Well, I guess this is like really, really big. Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. Any more questions? Yes.
Are you able to set it up like using an address? Let's say when you leave a certain city or a certain country, it alerts you that you left the geofence without using any like third party.
It depends. In my example again, I have this API server who will feeding my app with the geofences I need to monitor, and there's also a web system. I will create this geofences. So that depends. If you go out, this is a map from Toronto, but if you go out to another country, depends if you have your application. It's monitoring that there. Did I answer your question?
A little bit.
I think you were asking if the native API,
Yeah.
without going to a geocoding service, if you can ask the native API, hey, tell me, just create a geofence for Toronto, like, and it'll actually create it around the border. of the
Yeah,
city.
because I could probably create a complex service that returns me like the exact coordinates of Canada, and then let me know if I go to the US according to my lab logs.
Right.
But I was asking if there's something that does the same thing out of the box from like iOS or Android native APIs.
No, that I don't know to answer.
I don't think it does.
Yeah.
I think you have to handle it yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? No.
I'm not 100% sure. Like, if you can talk about it, but like, what specific use case was it? Like, what are you trying to do?
It's for a marketing purpose. For example, my client has the web application, and they create. They come here to HackerU, for example, and say, "Hey, are you going to be part of my app?" So I will create a geofence and cover your place. So whatever end user enter this geofence, the app will pop up a message say, "Hey, come to HackerU today and get a 50% out."
Very cool. Very
That's cool, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're good here. Should pop up anytime. Yeah.
Okay, so my name's Scott McDougall. I'm a senior mobile developer for a company out in Oakville. I handle all the mobile related things, which is the development of the app in Xamarin Native. So individual Android, individual iOS, and I also handle the deployments to App Store and Google Play for our application. So the app that I work on, it's a white labeled application. So it's one code base, and it's white labeled with all of our clients' logos on, say, like login screen. Their brand colors, and their app icon and stuff like that. So there's a few different ways you can handle that if you want to, if you just have, and their API, of course. A couple different ways you can handle that. I choose to do it based off of one code base, one branch, and manipulate the APK files and the IPA files when they're generated. Other ways you can do it, at my last company, I did something similar, but I think I had individual build definitions for each client. The problem with that is these are my builds here, but if we look at Android, for example, the last one that I did wasn't too bad, but it took 6 minutes and change to take from source, compile the application into an APK file. I did that at my last company, and it was the same thing, white labeled applications and stuff like that, but even when you have like a handful of clients, 6 minutes turns quickly into half hour, turns into a couple hours if you're just doing it all off of the source code. So when I joined this new company last year, they had a much larger client list than my previous company, so obviously that wasn't going to fly. Especially because I don't have a paid account on Azure DevOps here, but there's no free one, and they have a cap of 1,800 minutes or so. So what I did, I'll first give a high level of my Azure pipeline, and then I'll talk about a couple of the specifics for Android and iOS that I had to do to white label them and deploy them to the stores.
Quick question: do they use the App Center builds, or is it Azure DevOps is its own thing for builds?
So App Center is newer than Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps used to be Visual Studio Team Services. App Center, I looked at App Center, using App Center as well, but they don't have a pipeline structure. You can do like pre-build scripts, for example, if you wanted to, and I think post-build scripts or whatnot. But they don't have like a proper release pipeline for like different environments and all that stuff. So I don't use that. But this, I believe actually App Center uses Azure DevOps under the hood.
Same versions.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So App Center is just a more simplified version of it. And that would all just be off of source code as well.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm the only mobile developer at my company, so I don't have too many different branches. I have a dev branch and I have a master branch, and then I'll have a hotfix branch if something comes out in production. But I don't have like 100 different feature branches, different developers working on stuff like that. So these are my build definitions. There's only 4, 2 for Android, 2 for iOS. The ones here are off my development branch, and that's just for whenever I check in and just make sure that any change that I did didn't break anything, obviously. Right? Then I have my 2 CIs that are off my master branch, and these run every time I do a check-in to master, but that only happens basically through pull requests. I'll do a pull request for my dev branch and my master to kick it off.
And you approve it yourself. And
I do.
you manage it yourself.
So the idea,
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, it's like I did a good job. No one knows.
Have you seen the meme of the dog walking itself with the leash?
But yeah, I do it through pull requests because the intention was I was eventually going to hire more mobile developers, and I'm a pretty big stickler for that. Like, I hate seeing people just randomly like commit everything with no review.
Yeah.
So the intent was I was going to lead a mobile team, and I was going to be very strict on stuff. But anyway, so the builds run, and these compile the application. Then I'll go down here, and these are my release pipelines, iOS and Android, so one of each. But you can see that they have like a lot of steps.
Wow.
So the red marks here, I'll explain those in a bit, but Android's the same thing, a lot less red marks. And yeah, these are obviously just that environment was successful or wasn't successful, right? So looking at the iOS one first, this is the actual overview of my pipeline. So it has all the different environments here. QA, Bosk is the name of my company, so it's our QA, UAT, demo, prod, and then these are all of our clients. So the way this works, I also have a dev one up here, but it's not part of the actual pipeline because I'm the only one who uses it, so it's kind of like ad hoc. I don't want to waste the 2 minutes it takes to do that build, right? So I'll do it right now. But if you can see, all these tasks have all these stages have very few tasks to them. QA has 2 tasks to them. Everything else has 1, except for the production ones, or the client and the boss prod, or the app store ones. So they have a few more tasks. But the way I have this set up, I also use Azure DevOps for my work items, my stories, my bugs, and all that, which is why QA actually has 2 tasks. So this here, well, these are task groups. That's why it only has 1 task, because I group everything into 1 package.
Okay.
So I can make it more portable. I can use it elsewhere if I need to. Because if I didn't, like this just says internal iOS distribution, but if we look at it, it has the actual tasks associated with my internal distribution.
I didn't know you could do that.
This is super cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so, and you see here, most things here are...
How'd you figure out what to put in those boxes?
So actually, the way it started is like when I was first doing this, everything was just here, right? But you can select multiple things and you can create a task group from it.
Yeah.
So then I'm not going to do it here in my pipeline, but it'll take whatever you highlighted and create a group for it. And there's a menu over here for task groups, and you can find all your task groups there if you want to manage them.
Dude, this is super cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to look into it, and I just gave up. Yeah.
So in my internal iOS distribution, there's 5 steps. These 2 are like installing your Apple certificate and provision profile on the machine. So for iOS, I have a Mac Mini at our office. I could just have those always just installed there, but this allows it so that if there's power outage, I can flip it to the cloud and it'll still work, right? So there's no dependency on any cloud or any on-premise, right?
Yeah.
I'll show you this. This exists for all the clients, but it says download boss configurations. In here, there's only one step. And you might think to yourselves, like, why do you have a task group that's only 1 step? The reason is this is the download boss config, and it's used for both iOS and Android. I could just simply have this 1 step, which is just download a secure file, and this secure file is on Azure DevOps as well. But if I need to make a change to this zip file, then Azure forgets about this. So it links to the secure file based off like the internal ID, right? Not like the file name or anything. So and you can't update a secure file, probably by design. Like it's a secure file, you probably don't want to be able to just manipulate it without people knowing. So you can only delete it and then replace it. So if I delete our config file and replace it, this workflow will look essentially like this. Like it'll just be like, I can't find it, right? So I have to go in here, once I re-uploaded the boss config file, find it in my list and save it. So the reason why this is a task group is because it's used on both iOS and Android. I don't have to update it in both iOS and the Android pipelines. I just updated this 1 task group and then it applies to both. So I have a few things like that.
So explain the whole zip file again. So every time you have to build, you have to download this. What's the...
Yeah, so what it does is, the way I have my, I guess my...
Like, what's the purpose? Like, I understand what it does, but...
So this is my config file.
Yeah.
It has basically like an app URI, like their API, API endpoint, right? It has their App Center ID. This is for like crash analytics, right? Company name, obviously, and then primary, foreground, background colors, accent, and the browser policy, right? So these are the tokens that DevOps will replace. So when it replaces the values in this config file, once my app runs in like the app delegate, it parses it somewhere. Yeah, right here. So it parses it and then just essentially applies it to my configuration C# file, right? So it basically replaces these files, these values. And these values are my daily like dev values, right? As you can see,
Dang,
dev there.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so then everything basically gets read from here except for some things for Android.
No wonder they didn't hire another guy. They were like, they're like, yeah, he's got everything.
I got hired to do like, this is like version 3 of their app, which I got hired to build from like ground up. They had version 2 before that. And like I said, there's a couple different ways you can do all this. And the way that they did it before is like, it was still based off of 1 source code, but they had not even different branches for each client, but they didn't even have the mobile app and source control. It was just all on the guy's laptop. And whenever he's making a change to like this file to fix a bug, he had to copy and paste it into all the different client sources. I was like, you need me so badly when I interviewed there. So
That's cool.
So yeah, and then for all the DevOps stuff, there's a CEO's executive assistant who was appointed to all the app stores manually. And it was taking like hours and stuff. So definitely sped things up.
Yeah.
But the configuration file, the zip file that I showed you there, here's so this is the BOSC zip. It's broken down into a couple different sections. There's one config zip file for both Android and iOS, but it's broken up, and then it has a shared JSON file. This has like the API URL, the primary colors, company, the stuff that's applicable to both, right? Android and iOS are broken down based off of what they need. Basically the same structure, like there's a copy folder, which is essentially, once I get into it, it'll say the things that are in this copy folder is bring it into the APK file or the IPA file. And then these are specific configurations for iOS and Android, which would be things like the App Center ID for crash analytics and stuff, so that's separate.
Yeah.
Then there's this App Store folder here and the Play Store folder. And the deployment, what Azure DevOps uses, I'm using the Microsoft Task for deploying to the App Store and Google Play, but it uses Fastlane under the hood.
Yeah.
And Fastlane is just this tool used to automate your distributions, right?
Yeah.
So nothing that I'm doing here is really specific to Azure DevOps. It could be done manually, like a manual script that does all this. You get Fastlane installed and all this stuff. So this, like I said, is configuration broken down all iOS stuff. This metadata folder is a Fastlane thing, right? So you can have all your App Store and Play Store metadata local somewhere. You can edit it, and then once Fastlane deploys to the store, it'll update your description. It'll update your release notes and all that stuff for you. Or your review details for Apple. When you have to tell them like username and password, you can update that through Fastlane. The way I generate all of this is I built a very quick and dirty web page, and as you were saying before, like we're mobile developers, and this is I'm actually quite proud of my accomplishment. Yeah, exactly. Hey, brought me back to my old Razor days, like MVC.net, Razor days and stuff like that. So I'm like,
MVC.
yeah, so it's very
Web
bare
forms.
bones, right?
Yeah.
But it's basic stuff, so it's just. So I would fill all this out with their primary colors, privacy policy, and then there's a place for the Firebase configurations for push notifications, App Store metadata, all that stuff, key store alias for Android. I don't actually use this anymore in the config. It's now in Azure DevOps as a secure token. I just haven't updated this, so this doesn't get used. It can be whatever. Android Firebase, iOS Firebase, stuff like that, and then Android assets and iOS assets. So those would be things that end up in that copy folder. So if I did all this, it creates the zip file. There's obviously nothing in that one, but that's how we got to this. This is the contents of that zip file. So these are all the client ones, but all the actual zip files are here, and then they're in source control, obviously, as well. So that explains that part. So going back,
Scott,
Yeah.
just a question. Besides the colors and things like that, can you also change assets, like icons and pictures and things like that?
Yep. So I'll get into that. iOS has a very tricky thing for that, but I'll get into that in a minute here. But just looking at my QA stage, there's also this QA work item updater. Like I said, all my bugs and all that are in the Azure boards over here, work items and all that.
Yeah.
And I have this set up. There's this third-party task in the DevOps marketplace which will update the work item statuses and the assignee and stuff like that. So when I work on a bug, as you see in the work end types there, if there's a bug logged, then I'll mark it as resolved normally once I complete the work. Visual Studio will do that as well. When you do a check-in, you just assign it to a work item ID, and you can mark it as resolved through there. So what this updater does is it looks for any.
Wait, how does Visual Studio do it?
So Visual Studio, I'm not running Parallels
Essentially,
right now,
it
but
tags it with the work item number. and-
Like on the Mac?
no, not on
Oh, okay.
the Windows side.
Okay.
Well, in Mac too. So if you
Does
use
it?
the work item number in your commit.
Oh, yeah,
So,
so-
if you go like hash, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
When you commit that, it attaches it in the metadata in Azure DevOps that this commit is associated with this work item.
Yeah,
it
so,
ties them together.
so there's two ways to do it. You can do it in the commit message, as you
Yeah.
say, but also Visual Studio for Windows allows you to, it has a field, enter a work item number if you don't want to put it into the commit message. And I normally work in parallel, so that's how I
Yeah.
do it. But basically I mark it as resolved. So then this task will, when I do the pull request into the master branch, all my commits are there and all my related work items are associated to that that master CI build, right? And what this task does is it grabs all those work items and it updates the status. So assuming they're a bug 2 or defect, like those are my company's IDs, right? And then if they're either marked as resolved or I've marked them as a duplicate, then it'll update them to ready for test here. You see the work item state. And then it assigns it back to the person who assigned it to me. So that would be like a QA, right? The QA has assigned it to me, it assigns it right back to them. I don't have to manually go and like update all my work items ready for test and assign them to whoever.
Yeah.
I'm extremely lazy, so that's, I
Dude, this
can't
is
do it.
amazing.
So that was config in the work item. So this group here, if we have a look here, this here, as Daniel, what you were asking about assets and images and stuff. One of the things for our clients that we need to update is obviously the home screen app icon that shows up on your iPhone. So the way that I do that is in this configuration that you saw. I don't expect like all the different icons and all the different resolutions and all that stuff. I expect just one high resolution, like 1024 or something.
Yeah.
And then there's this thing on GitHub here, which will generate your iOS icons for you, right? It's just a basic shell script, right? And yeah, so it generates all these different icons for you.
Wow.
So I included that in I took that script and put it onto my secure storage on DevOps. And so that's what this task is. It's downloading that script file. Right? So it goes through, there's all these other things, but this generate icons here is what actually calls that script. See here, and it just takes this argument. So it just, in that copy folder that you saw, there's one file called app icon, and it's a big 1024 file, and it generates all those individuals, and then it drops it in here, assets, folder / app icon assets. So anyone who does iOS development, you see that there's this assets folder here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all these things, right? And then there's and then there's like app icon, and then these are my company's logo, right? It only has the ones that are necessary and applicable, obviously. But one thing about that though, one gotcha that I ran into with that is the later versions of Xcode, later as in I was like 4 years, so not that late, it compiles all the assets into a car file. So it's like .car is the endpoint. And you can't really, as far as I know, you can't really just unzip it like you could like an IPA and like manipulate and add things into it. So I couldn't get into my IPA file and update these assets and stuff like that. So what I did to get around that is, if we go back to my builds, so these builds also have their own tasks, their own steps associated with them. But one thing that I did is when I have my source code, this is before it's compiled the IPA file. I'm actually taking my assets folder and I'm copying it to the staging directory. And what that is once this build completes and it drops your IPA file somewhere, it's a specific folder in Azure DevOps, right? So that the release pipelines can pick up the IPA file, right? So alongside the IPA file is the raw assets folder, so that I can then replace those app icons and splash screen and all that stuff, right? So then what I have to do is, like I said, it's a file called a car file, and actually I have a local agent on my computer. I don't do my builds on my computer, it's just when I'm testing it, right? If I drill down to my iOS one, the drop folder here, so this is the assets, right? This is the asset folder, these are the icons, right? So I'm basically, I have this available in my release pipelines, just like I have available the IPA file that needs to be decompiled. So I update all the assets, like the logos and stuff, and then I use an Xcode command line tool. And since these run on Macs, obviously because it's an iOS build, it has access to the Xcode command line. And there's a specific tool, AC tool here, or a specific function, I guess you can say, that will compile this assets folder into that car file, right? So I just basically have the raw folder of the assets. I run this step in my pipeline, and it compiles it down into that car file, which I couldn't, as far as I know, unwrap in the first place, right? So then I just take that and replace it into the IPA file, and then the company's icons are all updated and stuff like that.
So do you have like detailed documentation for all of
No.
this?
Yeah, there's actually.
Because like, what if you like? What if like he leaves the company? You know, they're just screwed.
So,
He's
so
just
actually,
like
they're not completely screwed.
they have no clue what's going on. They're like, we don't know what this does, or
Well,
that, or that, or that.
Yeah, very true, actually. But actually, one thing that I have here, they might not understand everything that I'm doing, but one thing that I have is when we add like a new client, for example, if they want to add that client, like I create these templates. So I made it very easy. So I create this template. Let's say I name the company is TO, well, whatever, right? Like that's the name of our client. It already has those 5 tasks. So all you have to do is the certificate and provisioning profile. These are left blank intentionally because you have to upload their provision profiles to here. But it's very straightforward. You plug them in here, you upload their config file, and I have that website that will generate it, and so just select it here. And then everything else is basically good, except for one thing. One other thing I was about to get to is...
they can't fire you, man.
So one other thing for iOS is there's this this list of variables, like Azure, just like task groups that have everything grouped together. You can group variables together. So this is good for things like passwords and stuff like that, right? So they just have to fill in this stuff. This stuff up here is just for App Center integration, right?
Yeah.
Because all the apps that I upload to the App Store, I also upload the IPA to App Center, because you can't re-download an IPA file from App Store. And if for whatever reason I need to get that, maybe I want to double check the API URL or something and all that, I want to be able to just manually tear it down, unwrap it, and have a look, right? So everything goes to App Center as kind of like a backup or a repository, I guess you can say.
Very cool.
But these fields here, like App Store email, this is the email address that Fastlane uses to log into your App Store account to upload. So they just really have to fill out all this information. And I got the templates. Everything's very templated up. But a little bit of a knowledge transfer wouldn't hurt.
There are people asking for you to do a blog post or write something about this.
Yeah.
To share the knowledge on it.
I'm glad it's recorded.
Yeah,
Because I'm definitely going to watch
this is your documentation.
Because I'm definitely going to watch it.
My comment was, I thought I was the king of mobile DevOps, and I bow down.
Dude, this is next level.
So the rest of this iOS distribution group is fairly straightforward. This is the App Store assets I was talking about, like Fastlane and all that. This copy is just plist files, and the only plist that's copying is the Firebase configuration plist file for the client, which is part of that zip file that's downloaded. This just zips up the IPA file again. It's pretty straightforward. And then this re-signs the IPA file with the details of
Yeah.
the provision profile stuff. So actually, one cool thing is
One cool. Wow.
just like all these task groups. You see, there's all these variables. These kind of bubble up, I suppose you can say. So if you look up here, this is where all your variables are defined. So if in here you put in a variable, like if I just type this in, or if I type something in here, which don't embarrass me now.
You mean autocomplete?
No. So what it does is it created this variable up here, right? So
Yeah.
what I did is in here I created a variable. I just named it Apple, and then it shows up here.
Yeah.
Right? So you can put a default value. So this variable Apple is specific to this deployment group. You can set a default value if you want, and these default values, like company name, are, I guess, bubbled down, you can say, from the parent pipeline, the parent stage, right? So I'm gonna take that out. But yeah, so this goes all the way to re-signing the app. For internal, it doesn't put it to the App Store, obviously. It just deploys it to Visual Studio App Center. It is very straightforward and basic, I suppose. But for a client, this is TL Mobile.
How many web developers do you guys have?
One.
Oh, okay.
So for App Store releases, this takes a second. Like I said, there's 5 tasks, but all our clients and the Boss prod one goes to our App Store. They're all the same steps, same everything. So it's client-specific certificate and provisioning profile, client-specific configuration file, and then this deployment group that I just told you about. This is used for both internal and, I guess, external, you can call them. And then there's this group for publishing to the App Store. This part I want to rework slightly, just because we have some clients who are in test flight only, and then there are some clients who are in production, as you can say, like available on the App Store.
Mm-hmm.
But I only have one published App Store group right now, and I kind of just switch between if I need to, right? But basically, it has just a few steps for updating username, password, and test flight description stuff. This is more for Apple, like when they need to test their app, this login credentials if they need to do this, right? And then this file, the deliver file, if anyone's used Fastlane before, this is part of Fastlane. And one thing with using Fastlane for iOS, does anyone here handle the deployments for their apps?
Yeah.
Anyone else responsible for going to App Store and
Yeah.
submitting, doing all that stuff? So one of the questions that's asked a lot is like, does your app use specific encryption? Does it use this other thing, right? Add ID and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the deliver file for Fastlane allows you to set the values for it. Because if you don't have it, and it asks, I guess you can say, if it asks Fastlane for this stuff, it'll just hang. It will just wait, right?
Yeah.
So this deliver file just gets downloaded to, this was the job folder, so it gets downloaded here. And this directory here is what Fastlane reads from. That's where you see the metadata and the screenshots. So Fastlane will read this deliver file and just auto submit with those values that you provide for those things, right? The thing, and then, again, deploying to App Center. So this is one of my completed releases from, I think, what does it say, March 15th or so? Yeah, 15th, whatever.
So your app currently uses like a core. Is like how do you use the same pipeline for all those apps?
So they use the same code base.
Okay.
The only difference is the API endpoint that it calls to get the data,
Okay.
the branding information, like the colors and the logos and stuff like that.
Cool.
So the way I have my pipeline set up, I like to be very hands-off, I guess you can say, when it comes to releases. So I don't want people coming to me like QA is looking for a new build. It's like it's not my problem, right? But so the way it works is when I do a pull request from dev into master, the master builds and it automatically creates a release pipeline. Once it's done that, it automatically tries to send it to QA. but I have approvals set up on QA. So I don't want to, like, the apps for QA get sent to App Center and then they download them from there. I don't want to continuously deploy to App Center if like they happen to not be finished with their current version, because if they have to uninstall, I don't want them to get confused with all that stuff. So I have teams or groups of teams set up in Azure, and this is just our QA. So our QAs are part of this team. One of them has to approve the deployment to QA, right? Once QA signs off on it, once they're good, then Azure DevOps will ask them to approve it. Once they do that, that kicks off the other environments. So I don't have pre or post approvals for UAT or demo. Those are kind of just like a pass-through things. It's like it updates when it updates, or whatever, right? But our Bosk production one has an approval, so it doesn't go to the App Store until, well, I'm set as the approver now, so until I say it's good for the App Store. But that would normally be like a PM or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I have a post-deployment approval on the Bosk prod one specifically. Just like I said, these all share basically all the same logic. So if the Bosk prod one failed for a reason, it's likely applies to everyone. I mean, it might be Apple server issue, it might be my issue or something like that, right? But basically, once this gets deployed to the App Store, then I'll go in and approve it once someone tells me that the clients are ready to get their apps. And you could have this set up where, like, I have this set up where once this is approved, it'll kick off the deployment for all of our clients, because nobody has a problem with that, right? We haven't had like a client yet who's very granular about stuff like that, like deploy it only on this day or whatever like that, right? So it basically just shoots off all of our clients to the App Store sequentially. These take a little while though.
So what are your release cycles like? Every month, every week?
They're actually pretty ad hoc. It's basically just like when there's like our clients are kind of like, they're getting they're getting the initial version of V3. That's a big thing where it's like structured in time. But the ones who have already taken the latest version, it's just whenever we want to give them an update, we give them an update kind of thing.
So basically, every time you have a PR that goes through, like our task, like gets approved from QA and prod.
Yeah. So I group my work. I group my work over a bit of time. So if I do like one small thing, I don't do a pull request in the master and kick things off. Right? It's something minor like that, right?
Yeah.
But once there's something of substance, or if there's a critical bug that needs to be fixed or something, then sure, right?
Cool.
So these deployments to App Store take a little bit of time. Not that one. So like you see attempt 4, that's because you have the option of editing a release, but you can edit the definition of a release, or you can edit just this specific release 3.9, right? And that's why you see attempt 4, because I changed a couple things because the last few failed, right? And so if I go to a different client, so this one took 10 minutes and change to deploy. All my stuff is very quick. Like these are all my tasks just unwrapped, I guess. So those 5 tasks, task groups equates to all this.
Yeah.
But publishing the App Store took 10 minutes itself. Because if you upload an IPA to Apple, to the App Store, it has to process the IPA file, right? Which takes, in this case, it took 9 minutes, but sometimes it takes like 20 minutes. Right? But Fastlane, like if you tell Fastlane that you want to submit it for review, for release, Fastlane has to wait until that processing is done. That's why I have the 9 minutes there. Android, by comparison, takes like 3 minutes or something like that, so it's just, but yeah, so this deploys, so all the clients, they deploy sequentially one after another. These ones failed, and they're kind of expected to fail. The reason why is some of these apps, the ones that are not released, like the ones that are in production, they're set up in here to automatically submit for release, or for approval, and then automatically release once they're approved, right? Everyone else is mainly sent for approval, but manual release, right? Because maybe it's next week that the client wants their app. I want Apple to approve it now, right? So I can just click the button, right? But if in App Store, like in this client, for example, if in the App Store, Apple has approved it, and it's just waiting for developer release, Fastlane won't overwrite that build, right? So it won't, to submit a new app to Apple for review, you have to remove that previously approved one. So that's why these ones failed. But they still uploaded the IPA to App Store, so it's still there. So I just had to go in manually just do it because I just forgot that I had that one there. So there's no reason to redeploy these because I just manually fixed it on app side.
But you sign in with each different account.
So
Or you just choose the different account. Yeah.
yes, so this is not my ideal way of doing it or whatever, but I have one master email that is a release manager for each client's app store.
Yeah.
So it's just mobile app company, whatever, and I have my own password set up for that.
Yeah.
It's not the most secure way of doing things, right?
Yeah.
Normally, Azure DevOps, you should have these variables unique for each client, unique passwords for each client, stuff like that, but it hasn't been an issue, and like I said, I'm extremely lazy, so, so I haven't done it yet. I'm just going to quickly go to Android, but Android follows the exact same structure. All the different environments, everything is the exact same except for the tasks that it completes. The only thing I'm going to say about Android, everything's pretty much the same. Deploy to Google Play, sign the APK, download, and then configuration. I'm just going to very quickly go with the configuration side here. So what I use on the Android side is an APK file and an IPA file are basically just glorified zip files, right? But you can't exactly just unzip an APK file and do the manipulation you want, just like how you can with an IPA file for the most part, because Android compiles down all your stuff into like the resource files and stuff like that. So the way Android works is like with primary colors. That's one your style or one your color.xml values and stuff like that. And then Firebase is a real pain for Android if I want to manipulate the values in the IPA, because it compiles with the BOSC Firebase stuff, and it throws it all into like the strings.xml file. Right? So I have to actually find all the keys. That's what this group here is, but it basically just finds all the keys that I need to replace and replaces with the client-specific Firebase values, right? So it's really annoying. It was really annoying to write all this out and test it all out and stuff like that. But I'm using this thing called APK tool. If anyone's used it before, it's basically it unwraps an APK file for you and makes it so you can update the values and stuff like that. So if I go back to my local here.
So you can take an APK from the internet and just unwrap it?
Yep.
Oh,
If you know where to look and where to find
People
the values.
do that. They'll download like the Facebook APK. They'll do it, run through APK tool, and like change colors if they wanted to, and it works. Right? You have to re-sign it, but as long as they can re-sign it or
You don't need
whatever,
to re-sign it, do you?
well, I guess if you're maybe sideloading in like developer options on it, you might not have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise.
So you
I mean,
so
if
you can
use an
basically
APK
figure
tool,
out,
I have
like,
your phone set up as
you
developer.
can basically figure out like hashing algorithms and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can see some of the source depending on.
Yeah, and it does compile and wraps everything into a kind of a zip file.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can look at the code itself.
You can.
But can you?
Yep. So for Xamarin, as you can see here, there are DLL files, right? You can decompile DLL files, and then when it comes to like Java and Kotlin, it's basically the same
JetBrains.
thing, right?
I know that JetBrains has a good tool to decompile DLLs.
Yeah.
You
So
can actually
it's-
look at the font. And,
Yeah. So it's all
Wow.
it's all really available. But this is what stuff like ProGuard is for and stuff like that. Like that will what's the term? Obfuscate your code and stuff like that, just to make it harder to read.
Yeah.
Names all your
Yeah,
methods with like R1 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't do that. So but basically for Android, there's a lot of files here, but this is the result of my pipeline being run, right? And since it's just my local computer, I never like cleaned this up. But every time the pipeline runs, it deletes all what might be there already, so it starts fresh, obviously. But
What's that msim? The .apk.
this is all like I think this is like the debug symbols and all that.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
But this is the original APK file. It gets unzipped not unzip, it gets decompiled with APK tool, right?
Change
And-
the .apk to .zip. I think you'll be able to.
Yeah, you can,
Yes.
but it doesn't give you access to everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll do a quick comparison.
You can do what?
Like you change the .apk to
Yeah.
a .zip, and you can see most of what's in there, right?
Yeah, but it's not good for replacing values.
Mm-hmm. We also had we also built a specific pipeline for iOS and Android, and at first I tried making the APK a zip file and trying to modify the values as well.
Yep.
And then eventually I ran into this tool that you showed us, and yeah, I can relate to how painful it is to change the values.
But this is the end result of APK tool unwrapping all your stuff, right? So your manifest file is here, so you can update package ID and stuff like that, I believe. There's one thing that's in this YAML file that normally is in the Android manifest. It's one of the version values, I think version code 77. If I want to edit this, I have to edit it in this YAML file, not in the manifest file. Because APK tool strips that value out of the manifest for one reason or another. But this resource file, this has, like you see, a lot of this looks familiar, jowables, right? So this is where one of these jawable folders, I think it's V4, yeah. This would drop in like the logos and stuff like that. So same with iOS where I'm replacing it into the assets folder, I just drop it into the jawable folders for Android. And then this values folder has my colors.xml, or sorry, yeah, strings and colors.xml. And if I want to change the primary colors, I just do a regex on these XML files. Replace it. Pretty simple. But yeah, so that's the big thing for Android, just taking that APK tool, unwrapping it, replacing these values, and then everything else from there is pretty straightforward. Just use the APK tool to also repackage it back into the APK. You re-sign it, you send it off to that client-specific Google Play store, deployed to Google Play. One thing that kind of bothers me about Azure DevOps is their secure storage has a limit of 10 megabytes per file. So for APK tool, I'm not using like the latest. I haven't had any issues or whatever, right? But the latest is like 15 megabytes. I could upload that if I wanted to.
So what made you choose, so I know you're using secure storage on some things and then you're using like your actual source code repository for others. What makes you make the decision where you're going to store which?
I had to do like a zip file. Well, I didn't have to, I guess, but it's the difference between being able to very quickly generate that zip file with like non-security related values and stuff like that, right? So that glorious website that I made, filling this out and just downloading a zip file and uploading it is easier than creating a really big variable group on a client basis, right? But like, things like this API URL and stuff like that, that could be just put into a variable group for a specific stage.
What I kind of mean, Scott, is like, what about taking that zip file and making it part of your source?
Oh, yeah. So I'm not big on that. I'm not big on having client-specific stuff in source code. I don't know what it is. I don't like it. I want to be very generic, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I don't want to bloat it up with things. I don't want the possibility of merge conflicts arising because someone edited a file that's not related to the source code. So stuff like that, right?
So do you fill this out yourself, or do you get the client to fill this out too?
No. So right now I do it.
Oh.
The intent.
When are you going to make them do it?
Well, that was part of the intent of doing this was so that even if it's only someone internal, they could fill this out. Give me the zip file and I'm on my way, right? I don't expect like executive assistants to like go in and manage all this stuff, the DevOps stuff, but generate that zip file, give it to me, and give me passwords and stuff like that to fill this out, and then good, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically it, I suppose.
Yeah.
So wait, how long did it take you to do all of this?
I had something like this at my last company, so I already had familiarity.
Did
with
you
it.
set it up over there, or it was
Yeah, I
already
set
set
it up
up?
over there. What I was a lot more pressed for time at my last company, so it was very. I'm pretty sure at my last company I did everything as just a build definition, right? Not a pipeline or anything like
yeah.
that. And I think I had like client specific builds here, and then it would replace the assets in the source control, or not source control, in the source before it did the compiling, right? So I didn't have to do all this unwrapping and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the problem with that, as I showed, the Android build takes like 6 minutes, right? So
Yeah.
it's not scalable, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, so the Android build takes 6 minutes, and then what's the release for? This is Android, right? For this client, it took 2 minutes to actually recompile the APK, or like unwrap, recompile, and send it to their Google Play Store.
Mhm.
Whereas if I would just did off the source, this client would have taken 6 minutes, and all clients would have taken 6 minutes, right? So it's significantly saves a lot of time by by doing it this way.
Yeah. Awesome.
Dang.
Thank you, Scott, for sharing all this.
Did you face a situation when you had to publish an app to the store where you don't have a login, like a user and password, but you have to send a code, an SMS or something?
Oh, like
how do you put
two-factor?
this- Yeah, two-factor authentication. How do you put this into your script for
So,
the App Store?
yeah, so I don't do that. And when I joined the company, all of their accounts that they had set up for Apple were two-factor authentication, like even our internal ones. That's just how they set it up. It makes sense, right? I don't do that. So for my Apple login, it has a very strong password, but it's not two-factor, right? But the way you would handle that is Fastlane has something set up for two-factor authentication. It has to do like it's a little more involved, and I tried it initially, and I was whatever. I was like, it's too much work. It doesn't work. But Fastlane has something for that where it generates a session, and then that session will be used for the duration of deployment or whatnot. And that I can't remember if it's. I don't think it uses two-factor authentication in the sense where it will generate a code and then you have to put it into like I won't be able to put it into like a command here or anything like that. I'm sure Fastlane has that if I did everything from command line, but it has a way to, I believe, like with like a generate token from Apple or something like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you look at Fastlane, they have a section on their website covering two-factor authentication and how to deal with it, which is what DevOps uses under the hood anyway.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott.
No problem.
Scott, that was
Yeah,
awesome.
that was awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, all three.
Impressive. Okay, so we're out of time, but I'm gonna do a 5-minute demo anyways. No, it's all good. So, my topic today was around tooling, but I'm just gonna talk about two things. So I'm gonna talk about, so I think most of us are using Macs. Is anybody using PC primarily for their development? Okay, so my first sell is get yourself a Mac, use a Mac, you'll save tons of time, you'll hate your life a lot less. You'll hate your life a lot less, you'll have a lot more fun if you switch from Visual Studio for Mac to using JetBrains Rider. I've been using it as my daily driver for quite a while now. I've been using it off and on for about a year, and now it's my primary IDE. The reason why it's my primary IDE is because it has way better refactoring tools. Has anybody used ReSharper? Yeah, so it works like ReSharper because it's JetBrains. So what they did is they took their IdeaJ engine, which is the same, or IDE, so that IdeaJ shell, the same shell that they use for WebStorm and Android Studio and all that great stuff. They took that shell and they slapped it on top of the ReSharper engine, so you get all the ReSharper refactoring tools that you get with ReSharper with Visual Studio through Rider. It's small, it's slim, it's lightweight, it's got all that great stuff built in, and it's relatively inexpensive. So give it a try. I'm going to show one more thing. So I'm going to plug one more tool. That's the tool that I talked about earlier.
Can you show some of that refactor work really quick?
Let me do that after I do this quick
all
demo.
right.
Yes. So HTTP Tracer is a tool that Daniel and I built. Actually, Chase helped us too. Chase Florell. If you don't know Chase Florell, he's a Xamarin MVP, big Xamarin guy. Shout out to Chase. Hi Chase, he might be watching. We collaborated on this because we actually had this in some client-specific code because it was helping us debug. And we said, okay, well, it doesn't make sense that we can't get at what's actually going across the wire when we're making HTTP requests. So let's build in some functionality for that. So now, when I refresh the screen, so I'm going to pull to refresh it, and in my debug output, it logs the request. So my HTTP request comes up, it's showing that I'm trying to load Meetup, Toronto Mobile Developers, and that's RSS, and then it shows me the response. So this is what came back, succeeded,
All the header content.
the header content, and then the whole
Body.
body. So you can see what's going on across the wire. So that spec proposal that I had up on screen, I'll jump back to that after I show off some of the refactoring tools. But that spec is to make it so you can change the verbosity level. Right now it just blindly dumps everything to the output. So if you've got really big payloads, it's going to slow down your app. But we want to be able to scale the verbosity on the fly. So there's a spec out for that. Really like some feedback on that before we push it out to into NuGet.
So how do I try this again?
Grab a NuGet package.
Okay. What's it
HTTP
called?
Tracer
HTTP Tracer.
Yeah.
By
me and Daniel. Should
And
just
it's under BSI's GitHub.
on NuGet.
But on NuGet, it's HTTP Tracer.
Yeah, HTTP Tracer. If you search for HTTP Tracer, so just like
Yeah.
this, and then to use it, you just pass it into the HTTP client as a delegate, and it has a default logger built in that uses debug logging, which may or may not work for you. So you can just pass in, we've got an interface that you can implement. So that's very, very simple. It just has a log method, and you can make that do whatever you want. So ours is just a debug
Debug
right
line.
line.
The
It's very,
default
very
is
small.
that, right? But you can like write it anywhere you want.
Yeah,
You can
log
write
to
that
a
down
file
to
or
App
whatever.
Insights or whatever.
Yeah, we do some of that. We log to Application Insights and App Center, and yeah, all kinds of good stuff. So it's basically meant to make your workflow a little easier. So when you're making those remote calls, you can actually see what's going back and forth. So what we've done recently is, this is in the latest version. It's actually formatted for a tool that's built into ReSharper and that I've started using with Visual Studio Code. And that's just the simple REST client. So this is a really simple request, but if I had a more complex request, it'd be a little more impressive. But I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it into this HTTP file. And it gives me this little green Run HTTP Request button beside it. And I can click this button and run the request, and it'll actually run the request, so I can replay requests that my apps have made to see and manipulate, and I'll do all kinds of stuff. So I could go in here and I could like add some headers.
What?
Like bear or token or
Yeah.
whatever.
What?
Yeah.
So it makes it really easy to debug what you're passing back and forth to and from your server. Please check it out. We're putting a lot of love and care into that and work. And check out my spec. Give me some feedback. Okay, refactoring tools, really quick.
Refactor that into a different plan.
Yeah, let's. So this one here. So actually, this is all pretty well factored. Let me find something that's garbage. Okay, so let's say, just for argument's sake, I've got this RSS feed item which describes what's going to come in from the RSS feed, and I want to extract an interface for this. So if I go to the refactor menu on this, I've got all the same. This context menu looks almost identical to ReSharper. So you've got, I can extract members to partial, I can extract an interface or a superclass, I can move, so I can move it to a different namespace or a different part of the solution or whatever I want. Rename, save, delete. We've got of course, the refactor this where it gives you the more succinct options that are more frequently used. So let's say, let's extract an interface. So I wish I had a better Zoom tool on here, but I can tell it what members I want to actually extract, so I can go through and select. And this is, again, because it's using IdeaJ, that shell with the ReSharper engine underneath, you get almost the same experience. It's so close. Some of the things are a little bit different, but most of the experience, it feels like you're using ReSharper in Visual Studio. Oscar.
So with the shortcut on Visual Studio for Windows, I use the other tools that come along with it, like dot cover, dot trace,
Yeah.
for profiling the unit tests.
Yeah.
Do you have that in here as well?
There's some of those tools are built in. The unit testing in here is really, really good.
Yeah.
This is the only place I'll run unit tests from, like, most of the time, unless it's something that's testing, something that has a dependency on Windows. I don't know about duck cover.
Dot covering, like, that's the thing that I get most value on.
Yeah,
The Windows side.
I'm not sure if it's there. Try it out.
I'll take a look.
Yeah. The other thing it has is it has the decompiler built in too. So if I went to something like a view, I'll bring up like main page. And yeah, I'm using Iconize in here. So if I navigate to this icon tab page, it'll actually decompile the external sources and show me the generated source from the IL. I didn't have to, that comes with the product of the box, which is great.
Wow. That's amazing.
So yeah, that's my super quick wrap on this. The other two tools that I would normally demo if we had more time is with Visual Studio for Mac,